The wind of late autumn swept through the small settlement of Plymouth, carrying with it the scent of pine, sea salt, and smoke. The year was 1621. The sun had risen pale and low over the bay, painting the frosted roofs of the settlers' wooden houses with soft gold. Beyond the clearing, the forest stretched wide and unbroken, a dark wall of trees whispering secrets of a wild and ancient land. To an adult's eye, it was a harsh world, cold, uncertain, and still new. But to Sarah Cooper, an 8-year-old girl with curious eyes and a heart untouched by fear, it was a place of wonder. The world seemed to her both enormous and alive. The birds called from the woods, the waves sang against the distant shore, and everywhere the smell of harvest hung thick in the air. For months, Sarah had heard her parents speak of gratitude for survival, for food, and for the friendship of the people who had helped them live through their first year. Today, she would finally understand what that word meant. Inside her family's cabin, warmth glowed from the stone hearth. Her mother moved gracefully, though her hands were worn from work, stirring a pot of cornmeal while the fire cracked. Her father, tall and lean, spoke softly as he sharpened a knife. They had both grown older in a single year, their faces lined by hardship and hope, yet in the light of the fire a quiet joy flickered between them. Outside, the air hummed with motion. Men hauled baskets of corn and pumpkins. Women baked bread and roasted wild turkey. Children carried firewood with red, cold fingers. The smell of roasted meat drifted over the fields, blending with the sweet scent of cranberries cooking in pots. Among them walked Squanto, a Wampanoag man whose calm eyes seemed to hold both kindness and wisdom. He had taught the settlers how to plant corn with fish, how to find shellfish along the shore, and how to live with the land rather than against it. Sarah often watched him from a distance, wondering how someone could know so much about the earth. To her, he seemed part of it, quiet as a river, strong as the roots of an oak. The settlers worked tirelessly that morning, for this day was special, a day to honor the harvest, the friendship that had grown between two peoples, and the grace that had carried them through hunger and loss. Yet beneath the laughter and the smell of food, there still lingered a shadow, the quiet unease that came from difference. Many of the settlers still feared the Wampanoag, not out of anger but out of ignorance. The memory of that first winter, filled with sickness and loss, haunted them still. Sarah felt it too in small ways, the way her mother's hands trembled when strangers approached, or the way her father's eyes always searched the tree line before relaxing. She did not fully understand why. As the morning passed, she saw the first signs of movement at the forest's edge. From the shadows came the Wampanoag people, dressed in deerskin and feathers, their faces painted with natural dyes. They carried baskets of corn, beans, berries, and smoked fish. The settlers stopped their work and watched in silence. The air grew still, heavy with the weight of unspoken thoughts. Then the two groups met, slowly, carefully, like rivers merging. The settlers bowed their heads in greeting, the Wampanoag nodded in return. In that single gesture, years of fear began to melt. Sarah felt something stir within her, a soft, new understanding. She realized that courage was not just fighting or surviving. Sometimes, courage was sharing a table. As the sun climbed high, the clearing transformed into a festival. Tables made from rough planks and barrels stretched beneath the open sky. Upon them lay roasted venison, wild turkey, baked bread, corn pudding, and fruit pies baked in iron pots. Steam rose from the food in fragrant waves, wrapping the settlement in warmth and life. Children ran between the tables, laughing. Dogs barked and chased each other in the leaves. The air buzzed with new energy, something freer, lighter than before. Sarah sat beside her family, clutching a wooden cup of cider. Across from her sat a girl about her own age, a Wampanoag child with bright eyes and hair braided neatly with beads. Her name was Wunakwe. The two girls stared at each other for a long moment, then smiled shyly. They could not speak the same words, but their laughter needed no translation. Wunake handed Sarah a piece of roasted fish wrapped in leaves. Sarah, in return, offered a slice of pumpkin pie. They traded bites, giggling at the strange new flavors. Around them, music began, a settler's fiddle playing a bright tune, and from the Wampanoag side, the slow, deep rhythm of hand drums. The sounds wove together in perfect accidental harmony, one light and quick, the other strong and grounded. It was as if the earth itself was learning to dance. The men spoke in broken phrases, sharing stories through gestures and smiles. The women exchanged baskets and cooking herbs. For the first time, the settlement felt whole. As evening drew near, the sky turned golden, then deep orange, then violet. The air cooled, smoke rose in soft spirals above the fires, carrying the scent of food and ash into the heavens. The feast had lasted hours, but no one seemed eager to leave. Sarah stood at the edge of the clearing and looked at the faces around her, settlers and Wampanoag alike, their laughter mingling, their hands reaching for the same dishes. She realized that for this one day the world had changed. She thought of the hunger from the winter before, of the graves behind the cabins, and of the empty nights when her mother cried softly by the fire. And now here was food and music and peace. Gratitude welled in her heart, too large for her small body to hold. Above her, the first stars appeared. Their light seemed to fall gently upon the tables as if the sky itself gave its blessing. When the fires burned low and the guests began to depart, the settlement grew quiet again. The children slept where they sat. The moon rose silver and cold, shining over the fields that had fed them. Sarah lay beside her mother, wrapped in a quilt, listening to the low hum of voices fading into the dark. She watched Squanto speak softly to her father, both men nodding with tired smiles. She saw Bunakwe wave once before disappearing into the shadowed woods with her people. The girl's heart was full, not of food but of something deeper. She could not name it yet, but it was the feeling of being part of something good, something that might last beyond the night. Years passed, the colony grew, the world around it changed, sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. But Sarah never forgot that first Thanksgiving, the day when strangers shared bread and peace beneath the same wide sky. As she grew older, she told her children the story again and again of how courage and gratitude walked hand in hand and how the smallest kindness could bridge the widest distance. She told them of the smell of roasted corn, the laughter that echoed between the trees, and the moment when two little girls shared a meal and became friends. In her heart, that day never ended. She remembered the warmth of the fire, the hum of the earth beneath her, and the stillness of the stars. It was the day, she would say, when the cornfields sang, the day when the world for a moment was full of grace. Through the eyes of a child, the first Thanksgiving becomes more than a feast. It becomes a moment of human connection, of learning that gratitude is not found in what one has but in what one shares. It is the understanding that peace begins not in treaties or promises but in the simple act of kindness, of two people sitting down together and giving thanks beneath the same sky.